The foreclosure mediation program that is being expanded to include community associations now includes that owners have the right to contact a housing counselor for assistance with their delinquency at any time. That's always been true. Owners have always had the right to contact a housing counselor at any time. The statute just wants to sort of make that extra clear, both to owners who need these resources as well as to associations who are trying to figure out whether an owner has the right to do these things. Once an owner contacts a housing counselor, the first thing that they will likely do is contact both the association and the unit owner and request that the parties attend something called a meet and confer. And they have to do that within 30 days of receiving the request from the housing counselor. And there's a list of topics that have to be on the table at that meet and confer session, including things like the possibility of a payment plan, waiver of late fees and interest, or attorney's fees, modification of delinquent assessments. And this is where you start to see language that makes sense in the mortgage realm, but doesn't really make sense in the association realm. Modification of late fees or other charges associated with the delinquency and any other type of workout plan. And importantly, parties have to bear their own attorney's fees for the meet and confer session. So the statutes in Washington for collecting unpaid assessments currently allow the association to pass on reasonable attorney's fees and costs incurred in connection with collecting delinquent assessments to the delinquent owner. This bill, which will soon become a statute, requires certain parts of this process, the cost, if the association chooses to hire an attorney and help them through this process, must be borne as a common expense within the community. And this is one of the reasons that we fought really hard not to see this bill pass or to get modifications to the bill at least introduced, because we don't think that it is fair that the costs of one unit owner's delinquency have to be borne by the entire community, which is essentially means all of the paying owners are paying the bill for your association being represented by counsel during this process. But nonetheless, that is what the bill requires. So after the meet and confer session, what happens is the housing counselor is charged with determining whether the owner should then be referred to mediation. I sat in on a lot of the stakeholder meetings with the sponsor of this bill. A lot of housing counselors were also a part of that process. And what I'm hearing from them is, because we expressed a concern that this essentially created duplicate processes, right? The meet and confer is basically getting the parties together to try to work out a resolution. And the mediation requirement is essentially that again, except for with the participation of a third-party mediator. And what I heard from the housing counselors is that they would only refer an owner and an association that had participated in the meet and confer process to mediation if they thought there was a reason that mediation might work when the meet and confer process didn't work. So that's not codified in the bill anywhere, but that's what I'm hearing from the housing counselors. Again, one of the things that was hard for us when we were talking about this bill with the prime sponsor and with the stakeholder group is that it really does attempt to fix a problem that doesn't really exist. You can imagine that in the mortgage lending realm, it is actually really difficult for a borrower to get a decision-making person on the phone to have a real-time conversation with them if they're in default on their mortgage, or if they think they might be going into default on their mortgage. Conversely, in a community association, unit owners have the right to talk with their board members almost at any time, as long as they follow the communications procedures that are in place for that community, including they can email the manager, they can attend a board meeting, they can show up at an association meeting. So this bill is trying to fix a problem that really doesn't exist in most communities, but here we are. So the mediation requirements require the association to provide to the mediator and to the association's owner, to the delinquent owner, certain documents, including a copy of the owner's ledger, copies of any lien that the association might have recorded against the property, and copies of the association's governing documents. And the owner has to provide evidence of any payments they have made that are not posted to their account. They have to provide a statement of hardship, if any, and a proposed payment plan if the owner is interested in a payment plan. Timing wise, the mediation is supposed to be scheduled within 70 days of the referral for mediation by the housing counselor. And the parties are encouraged to meet in person, but telephone or video conference is allowed if an in-person meeting is not practical. Further requirements include that a person with the authority to agree to a resolution on the behalf of the association has to be part of that mediation, which means that at least one board member will have to attend, in addition to the association's attorney, if you choose to have your attorney participate in that process. And this also will probably require that the board vote in advance to give that attending board member the authority to bind and make a decision on behalf of the association when they attend that mediation with the homeowner. You have to discuss the issues that led to the foreclosure or the delinquency, and you have to address all of the same topics that were addressed during the meet and confer part of this process. And then after mediation, the mediator sends a written certification to the parties and to the Department of Commerce, which is our state department that oversees this mediation process. It has to state when the mediation took place, who attended, whether a resolution was reached. And if there is no resolution, then the association can file a foreclosure lawsuit or resume one if there is already one pending. And also importantly, again, the parties have to bear their own attorney's fees related to mediation. So if you are if you hire an attorney and they send a demand letter, try to negotiate a payment plan with the owner, and then the owner contacts a housing counselor who refers this to the meet and confer and then mediation process, your attorney can either not participate in that process, not continue to advise the board, so you eliminate the potential for attorney's fees during that process, or if you continue to seek the advice of your association attorney, which we think every board should have the right to do, you are not going to be able to assess those legal fees to the delinquent owner's account.